Hi everyone, I'm Christina and I apologize for it being a while since I have made a video, but life happens sometimes and you just get overwhelmed. But getting right to the point, we really just need to get right on the ball talking about what's been going on in the Gulf of Mexico. There's like really been, things in the news about the blue water in Galveston. And that isn't necessarily a cute or good thing, all right? Um, the official story was that like Alberto kind of held off the murky waters that were coming out of the rivers, into the Gulf. It was holding it back, and some of the salt water from the Caribbean was pushing in and holding that murky water back, and that we should just enjoy it while we can, and that the winds would be coming in next, which kind of it did. We had a very, very strange storm recently in Houston area that came from east to west. We're used to the storms most of the times coming west to east. But this it was a pretty big storm came in. But that was just a little odd, but back to this water, okay? So we're hearing that it's blue, and my son's dad screeches into the driveway, telling my daughter and I, "Hey, let's go to the beach in Galveston." And my son's like, "Woohoo, yeah, let's go." And my daughter and I, we had just like opened our eyes, and we didn't even know where our head was, much less a bathing suit. So I just like sent them on and said, "Hey, y'all have a great time and just take some pictures," which they did. Okay. And the water was a little bit more green. It had been like, it'd been blue like maybe the day before, but it was a little greener on this day. But not only did he get the picture, but he described to me that the salt in the water was incredible. I mean, I know what he's talking about. Usually, the smell's kind of fishy, a little brown and everything, and we can taste salt, but he's saying it was an incredible thick amount of salt that you could taste. I thought, isn't that something? And then that fish death happened right there in the Galveston, area. It was at the Houston Yacht Club, which I got a map, to show you, about where that is. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting, really, because, we're talking about the amount of salt content in the water, and from Houston through Louisiana, and I'm not sure beyond that, but I would, I know all, like as far as the Gulf states beyond Louisiana, we have salt domes on the coasts of Texas and Louisiana. The Gulf of Mexico itself is kind of riddled with salt shells and salt domes underneath the sand underneath the water in the Gulf of Mexico. We know this, not just the volcanoes, but um, so what I started doing was I started investigating where some of these salt domes might be. And the first one that really came to mind was the Gulf of Mexico brine pool, and it's just at the bottom of the Gulf, and it's just pure salt. They say that it was like a salt dome that kind of caved in, but the salinity of the water, when it's different thicknesses of salt, it doesn't allow it to mix, and so it just kind of stays down there, right? Well, the brine pool nicely fitted right in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. Thought that was super interesting, right in the middle. I was like, no, 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 that can't be it. That just cannot be it. That's too far away. So then I started checking other places, right? Let me see. And I came across this regional tectonic system northern Gulf of Mexico map, and it showed the tectonic plates, and this is doing a Google search on where the salt domes are, but this is one of the first things I ran across, and one of the actual plate lines goes right through the part of Galveston that got the fish kill, okay, right through the Houston Yacht Club, I'm sorry. That was the first interesting thing that I saw. And then I got the Houston, Texas salt dome map to locate those salt domes too. And on this map, I saw 3 salt domes really on the southwest side of Houston: the Blue Ridge Dome, the Bowling Dome, and the Nash Dome. Okay, and that's not very far, but it gets even more interesting, because I was sitting there thinking, okay, didn't we just have a 4.6 earthquake in early May right off the coast of Louisiana? And we did. And it was interesting because I come across this article about the Gulf of Mexico channel evolution, and it is talking specifically about um, the movement of salt and rising salt domes on the Gulf of Mexico floor, and that there's some kind of pattern, some kind of evolution that happens with salt domes rising in the past, and moving the salt around at some point. Okay, but in order for the salt domes to be rising, there's got to be pressure under the Gulf of Mexico also, causing these salt domes to rise. Now, a release of the salt in a dome would change the salinity of the water in the immediate area. Right now, we know we had what looked like maybe a slight shelf collapse in around Louisiana, maybe, but that would still be too far away from the Galveston area to not be affecting Louisiana, because the Gulf Stream goes east, not west. So what's happening in the Galveston area may be somehow connected underneath the floor to what's happening, Louisiana and Texas, but something separate is happening in the Galveston area that I believe specifically has to do with plate tectonics, possibly rising magma because of the rising floor, the rising salt domes, because this is how this happens. And for that fish kill to happen, the rise in the salt content of the water would have been enough, and it happened right at the time the water showed up in Galveston, the same time that fish kill happened. Okay, so now they came out with an article saying, oh, expect more clear blue water now near the Galveston beaches, and yet last week it was like, oh, just enjoy it while you can, it's not gonna last. And yet now they're like, oh look, it's gonna be here. And on top of everything, there's another video talking about how there's a line in the water. Okay, and that again shows you the difference in the salinity of the water. Okay, on one half you see the usual murky brown water that oysters just totally love. Okay, which, by the way, helps support our oyster, kind of seafood economy down here. All right, so I don't know exactly, I haven't checked into how that affects oysters, but I know that the articles weren't liking it, and that it was saying, they need that murky water back, so we could be looking at another hit agriculturally, seafood wise right now, but that water's back. And Okay, so when you look at the small part, okay, you got to look also around what's going on around, okay? And in Texas, I did a 30-day map on Texas for, just basically 2.5 earthquakes and above magnitude, and there is a rise in earthquake activity. We had 14 over a 30-day period when I took this picture. What you'll notice on the west side of Texas is the Trans-Pecos volcanic region, which often is affected by the California uh, coast. When it's the subjection zone is under pressure, we will see tremors in that region on the west coast, and on the west side of Texas is what I mean. So that is showing that, yeah, we've got a major amount of pressure coming in from this California fault line that everybody's been worried about. But not just California. I'm seeing some serious problems around the Washington, Yellowstone area. Washington has really picked up in swarms. Yellowstone, I know they say that all the time. I really don't pay it a whole lot of mind, but it is picking up. And there was an article that came out, I believe it was today or maybe yesterday, about how the Yellowstone geyser had erupted 8 times in 3 months, which is supposed to be a big deal. But basically what I'm seeing is Hawaii just seems to be like a point of reference of pressure that is much bigger than what we understand. I feel like there's a huge pressure, not just on Hawaii, but kind of also pushing eastward onto the United States West Coast, okay, which is affecting West Texas volcanic region and mid United States, where Oklahoma, Kansas line, it's building pressure there, and it's so much pressure that it's also affecting the New Madrid around Tennessee. But then if you look um, up at the corner in the New England part of the United States, and Northeast, where New York is, New Jersey, some people might not know where New England is, you'll see a couple of tremors there, which we've been starting to see. And basically, there's a rising chamber of magma that's been rising from around the New York area into the water straight through to Nova Scotia. Okay, that area has got a major rising magma chamber, and then we're seeing the activity in the Gulf of Mexico. All right, so right there, it's not one isolated area per se. Okay, I mean, I know we've got a lot of volcanoes going off, but what I'm trying to point to is that something is building underneath the United States. Big time. I mean, really, really, really big. There's got to be. Okay, we've got a huge cluster on the West Coast. I mean, that is huge. That's just 7 days, okay? And then the other fault lines being affected and the Gulf of Mexico, that really says something. So what I want everybody to really do is pay attention to the Gulf of Mexico, because you might see a fish kill maybe in Florida, or you might, okay, it might be all related, and it is, but there's different keys, like on a piano in the Gulf of Mexico, okay? Because we have those different sections that are there, and where you have fault lines, you have volcanoes, we have salt domes. For the pressure to be building, okay, that's something really to keep an eye on. It's something that's going to be gradual over time, but the fact that we've got clear water in Galveston like that, and it's so salty, okay, that's not okay. That is not normal, and that is not because of some tropical depression that has come and gone a week ago. Okay, so just wanted to give you some thoughts, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, God bless you all. Bye.